Romance of Sui in Tang Dynasties Chapter 78.
History just loves a good, ironic name.
Oh,
It's like
absolutely.
when you meet a giant bouncer named Tiny, or you read about a military campaign called Operation Smooth Sailing.
Right.
But today, I think we are looking at the heavyweight champion of historical irony. We're diving into the story of a woman named Taiping.
Which, if you look at the characters, literally translates to great peace.
Great peace, it sounds so lovely. And yet, looking at our source material, specifically Chapter 78 of the novel Sui Tang Yanyi, this woman was the absolute architect of chaos.
She really was.
Yeah.
If you were looking for peace in the Tang Dynasty, her front door was the last place you wanted to be.
Exactly. To understand a family feud that, well, it wasn't just about who sits at the head of the table. This was a battle for the soul of the Tang Dynasty.
It's a huge story.
Mm-hmm.
In one corner, you have the aunt, the powerful and, frankly, terrifying Princess Taiping.
And in the other, her nephew, the young crown prince, Longji.
And stuck right in the middle is an emperor who just wants everyone to get along.
He just wants a quiet afternoon. But what's great about this source is that it's not just action. It gives us political philosophy, It forces us to grapple with these huge questions like, what do you do when your duty to the state means you have to destroy your own family?
Heavy stuff. But before we get there, we have to talk about the villain.
Okay.
The source paints a very vivid picture of Princess Taiping right from the start. It opens with this breakdown of the four vices.
Right. Wine, lust, wealth, and anger.
Yeah, but the author gets really specific. They argue that when you combine an insatiable greed for wealth with lust, especially in a person with political power.
You get a total breakdown of order.
Exactly. The text explicitly links this toxic combo to what it calls female interference in the court. They name names: Empress Wu, Empress Wei, and of course our antagonist, Princess Taiping.
And let's be fair here, the source doesn't portray her as some cartoon villain who's just evil for no reason. She has a resume. She's incredibly competent, isn't she?
Highly competent. And that's what makes her so dangerous. You have to remember, she was a key player in the coup that put her own brother, Emperor Xuanzong, on the throne.
She actually worked with her nephew, Longji, to get rid of the previous corrupt group.
She did. So in the emperor's eyes, she has merit. He trusts her.
So she helped build the very house she's now trying to take over.
And he trusts her implicitly. But that trust allowed her to build a machine. The source says her intelligence was manipulative. She essentially monetized the entire Tang government.
I was reading that session. It sounds like she was running a kind of shadow HR department.
That is a perfect way to put it. If you wanted a promotion, you didn't go to the Ministry of Personnel. You went to the princess's front door with a bag of gold.
Her people were everywhere.
They flooded the court. She created a bureaucracy loyal to her, not the state.
And then there's the, well, let's call it the lifestyle aspect. The text does not hold back here. It mentions she privately invited beautiful young men to her residence.
It does. And the text frames this as an abuse of power, basically saying she had the same privileges as a male ruler. But it highlights one relationship in particular that causes huge problems.
Yeah.
A monk named Hufan.
A monk. That sounds surprisingly spiritual for someone with insatiable greed.
Oh, don't let the title fool you. There was nothing spiritual about this guy. The text calls him a treacherous monk. Think of him less like a religious figure and more like a political enforcer who just happens to wear robes.
So he's her muscle.
He and his crew were bullies. They seized property, caused trouble, but because they had the princess's protection, they were completely untouchable.
So you've got this corrupt court, a shadow government selling jobs, and a squad of thugs terrorizing the capital. It feels like the prince, Longji, is completely outgunned.
He's isolated. He has a few good ministers on his side men like Yao Chong and Songjing, but the atmosphere in the capital is just suffocating. It's a pressure cooker.
Which is why I think the next scene in the text hits so hard. The narrative just does this hard cut. We leave the smoky, corrupt palace and go straight out into the woods.
It's a deliberate contrast. The prince goes hunting. And the text is careful to note, he isn't just doing this for fun. He's doing it to not forget military affairs. It's a sign of diligence.
He's staying sharp while everyone else is getting soft, so he's out there, and he spots a yellow roe deer.
A classic symbol in these stories. The deer often represents an opportunity or some prize to be won.
So he gives chase, he gets separated from his bodyguards, and suddenly the crown prince is alone. He loses the deer, but he stumbles across a village. And this is where it gets really interesting. He sees a woman picking tea.
This scene is pivotal. He's not in disguise or anything. He's wearing his purple gold crown. He looks like a prince.
Right. He rides up, probably expecting everyone to bow. He asks about the deer, and she just ignores him.
Doesn't even look up from her work.
His attendant finally catches up, sees this peasant woman ignoring the crown prince, and starts losing his mind. Do you know who this is? This is His Highness. And her response, oh man, it's legendary.
She says, my heart is only on the tea. What do I care about a deer, let alone a highness?
Such a mic drop moment. I'm busy. Take your purple crown and go somewhere else.
It is. But think about the philosophy there. In the court, everything is about status. Who's higher, who's lower. Here, she's focused entirely on her craft. She's saying that your status is completely irrelevant to the task at hand.
She has a purity that the palace has lost. And Lingji's reaction tells you everything. A tyrant or his aunt Taiping would have had her arrested right there for insolence.
Absolutely. But Longji is intrigued. He sees her extraordinary bearing. He realizes that real quality doesn't always come wrapped in silk. And because he's curious, he follows her.
He follows her to this little thatched cottage. And just as he's taking it all in, another character shows up. A man on a lame donkey.
This is Wang Ju. And the visual is important. A lame donkey implies poverty, maybe failure. But the text says he sees the prince's fancy clothes and bows immediately. He's observant.
So the prince goes inside the cottage, and it's a total shock. On the outside, it's a shack. Inside, it's a scholar's library. Books everywhere, as if there a sword on the wall.
It's the hidden sage archetype. The idea is that when the government is corrupt, the truly wise people don't fight for scraps in the capital. They retreat to the woods and wait. They preserve their integrity.
And the prince starts snooping around, as you do, and finds a letter tucked in a book. And it's from Xuanzong.
That same upright minister we mentioned earlier, this is the crucial connection.
The letter is basically begging this guy, Wang Ju, to stop hiding his talent and come save the country. This is the validation the prince needs. He realizes, okay, this isn't a random peasant. This is a heavy hitter scouted by the best.
So the prince asks him the obvious question. If you're so talented and people like Xuanzong want you, why are you hiding out here picking tea?
And Wang Ju's answer is a masterclass in political strategy. He talks about Dushi.
Observing the times and assessing the situation. He explains he wasn't hiding out of arrogance. He was waiting. He believes a scholar shouldn't just jump into service blindly. You have to wait for a leader worth serving.
That is a bold interview technique. I'm not unemployed. I was waiting for you to be good enough to hire me.
It's incredibly bold.
Yeah.
But it works because it's true. The prince realizes he's found his strategist. They have to separate, but the connection is made. The prince now knows there's help outside the palace walls.
And honestly, it's just in time, because back at the palace, the paranoia is ramping up. We switch scenes back to Princess Taiping, and she is spiraling.
She senses the prince is becoming a real threat. You see, competence is dangerous to her. She doesn't want a capable heir. She wants a puppet.
So she goes straight to the emperor and starts the rumor mill, claiming the prince is plotting a coup.
And Emperor Ruzong.
Yeah.
You have to feel a little sorry for him. He's a survivor of other coups. He's jumpy. The text says he tells his ministers a fortune teller predicted soldiers will enter the palace within 5 days.
He's letting superstition drive state policy. That's a bad sign. He's ready to arrest his own son based on a horoscope.
But this is where the ministers earn their pay. Well, Anshi steps up and basically scolds the emperor.
He does. He calls the suspicions words of a ruined kingdom. That's incredibly strong language to use on an emperor.
He points the finger right at Taiping, saying, this is her manipulation, not the prince's treason.
And then Zhang Yu and Yao come in with a fix that I found so clever. They propose making the crown prince the Jianguo.
A regent, yeah.
Right. But explain the logic here. The emperor is afraid the prince is going to steal power, so the ministers say, give him the power.
It sounds totally paradoxical, but it's brilliant. If the prince is plotting a coup, it's because he wants to control the state, right?
Right.
By making him regent, the emperor gives him legal control to supervise state affairs. It removes the entire motive for a coup. If you already have the keys to the car, you don't need to hotwire it.
That is some 4D chess right there.
It also forces the prince to operate in the daylight. If he has official duties, he can be observed. It calms the emperor's fear while actually empowering the prince to defend himself.
And the emperor agrees. So the crisis is averted for now, and since the prince is regent, he can hire staff. And who's the first person he calls?
The man on the donkey, Wang Ju.
So Longji brings Wang Ju to court. And we have to talk about this entrance. Wang Ju doesn't walk in with his head bowed. The text says he walks slowly, looking around arrogantly. The attendants are freaking out, telling him to show respect.
And he shouts loud enough for everyone to hear, "I only know there was a Princess Taiping. I didn't know there was a crown prince."
Oof, that line just cuts deep.
It just sucks the air right out of the room.
He could have been executed on the spot. Why start your new job by insulting the boss?
Because it wasn't an insult. It was a wake-up call. He was holding up a mirror. He was saying, look at the reality of this court. The princess is the one everyone fears. You, prince, are invisible. You're irrelevant.
He needed to shock the prince into accepting how dire the situation really was.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the prince gets it. He swallows his pride. He doesn't get mad. He realizes Wang Ju is testing him again. He brings him inside, reveals the Yao Chang connection, and they finally get down to business.
And this is where the conversation shifts from hiring a smart guy to planning a survival strategy. Wang Ju tells him flat out, Taiping, her lover Huifan, and her whole faction are going to try to kill you. It is them or you.
But the prince hesitates. And this brings us to the core conflict of the whole chapter. He says, the emperor has only this one sister. If I harm her, I fear hurting the emperor's feelings.
This is the filial piety dilemma.
It is. In this society, respecting your family and elders isn't just a nice thing to do. It's the supreme moral law. The prince is terrified that attacking his aunt is a betrayal of his father. He's worried about being a bad son.
It's almost relatable in a very high-stakes way. I can't take down the family business because it'll break Dad's heart.
Exactly that. But Wang Ju counters with a concept that is so crucial. He distinguishes between small filial piety and great filial piety.
Okay, let's unpack that. What's the difference?
Wang Ju argues that small filial piety is about making your parents happy in the moment, being polite, avoiding conflict, keeping the peace at dinner.
Okay.
But great filial piety is about securing the legacy of your ancestors and the survival of the state itself.
So saving the entire dynasty.
Correct. He argues that if the dynasty falls because the prince was too polite to deal with his corrupt aunt, that is the ultimate betrayal. He would have failed all of his ancestors. He basically says, you cannot sacrifice the empire for the sake of one relative.
Wow. You have to hurt your family to save your family's legacy.
It's the burden of leadership. And in the text, that argument wins the day. The prince realizes his personal feelings are secondary to his political duty. He accepts that being a good son in the big picture means being a ruthless operator right now.
So does he just march out and arrest her immediately?
No, and that's the discipline of it. The text says the prince agrees to slowly plan. He appoints Wang Ju as an advisor, keeping him close without drawing too much attention. They go into stealth mode.
It's the beginning of the end for Taiping. She just doesn't know it yet.
Right. She's playing checkers, moving pieces for immediate gain. And thanks to Wang Ju, the prince is finally learning to play Go. Okay, so imagine looking up at the night sky. It's July, in the first year of the Taiji era.
Right.
So that's 712 AD for those of us who aren't, walking around with a lunar calendar in our pockets.
Uh-huh.
You look to the west, and you see something that just makes your blood run absolutely cold. A massive comet sweeping right into the Taiwei constellation.
And we have to pause right there because in the Tang dynasty, the Taiwei isn't just a random bunch of stars. That is the imperial enclosure.
Okay.
It represents the emperor's court, the administration, the seat of power. I mean, to the ancients, a comet intruding there isn't a weather event. It's a breaking news alert from the heavens.
It's a bad sign.
A very bad sign. It screams, the old is being swept away to make room for the new.
Which is a terrifying prospect if you happen to be the old currently sitting on the throne.
Oh.
And let me tell you, this is a roller coaster. We're talking prophecies that backfire, poison plots, a literal sword used as a corporate memo, and a night glowing curtain that saves a man's life.
It really is a masterclass in political survival.
Right.
We're looking at the chaotic transition from Emperor Ruzong to the legendary Emperor Xuanzong. But if you zoom out, this isn't just history. I mean, this is a case study on the difference between, hard power, the sword, and soft power, the curtain. It's about how you seize power versus how you actually keep your head attached to your shoulders once you have it.
I love that framing, because usually we just hear about the battles, but the aftermath, that's where the real game is played, isn't it?
Exactly.
So let's go back to that comet. We have Princess Taiping. She is the emperor's sister, incredibly powerful and, frankly, ambitious with a capital A. She sees this comet and thinks, I can use this.
Right. So Princess Taiping has been a power player for years, and she sees this comet entering the Taiwei enclosure, and she goes straight to her brother, Emperor Ruzong.
And what's her play?
She has her astrologers tell him, look, the comet signifies removing the old to establish the new. But she puts a very specific, very dangerous spin on it.
She's not just saying, hey, brother, your time is up.
No, she's much more manipulative. She implies that the new element threatening the emperor is actually the crown prince, the future Xuanzong.
Wow.
Her goal is to terrify the emperor into thinking his own son is this cosmic threat. She wants him to demote or remove the prince to, save himself from the bad omen.
It's classic Machiavellian maneuvering. Use superstition to purge your rival. Sorry, son, the stars that say you have to go.
Exactly.
But this is where the story takes a turn that I found just absolutely hilarious. Her plan completely blows up in her face.
Oh, spectacularly. And it's a great lesson in knowing your audience, She misjudged Emperor Ruzong's personality entirely. Ruzong isn't some power-hungry tyrant holding on with a death grip. He's actually quite weary of the burden. He's tired.
So when he hears the prophecy...
He doesn't fight the prince. He basically says, oh, thank God, I can finally quit.
No way.
Yes. He says, great, if that's what the stars want, I'll just retire. He figures if he steps down voluntarily and passes the throne to the prince, he satisfies the prophecy. He neutralizes the omen by leaning into it.
So instead of getting the prince fired, Princess Taiping accidentally fast-tracks his promotion. The prince becomes Emperor Xuanzong, and Ruzong becomes the Taishang Huang, the retired emperor.
Yep.
You have to imagine Taiping's face at that moment. She tried to play 4D chess, and she checkmated herself.
It is so ironic, but, and this is crucial for you to understand, this doesn't end the conflict.
No.
It actually accelerates it. Because now you have this dual power structure. Xuanzong is the emperor, yes, but his father, the retired emperor, still holds massive influence.
And Taiping still has the father's ear.
Exactly. So now the gloves come off. She moves from political maneuvering to, well, actual physical danger.
Right. She realizes she created an emperor she can't control. So she starts gathering a faction to depose the nephew she just accidentally helped crown. She's recruiting heavy hitters ministers like Xuanzong and Senqi. But I found it really interesting that not everyone was on board. There's this one figure, Lu Xiangxian, who sort of stands out as the moral compass here.
Lu Xiangxian is fascinating because he represents that Confucian backbone of the administration. Taiping tries to recruit him for her coup. She tries to argue that the new emperor is, morally lacking or incompetent.
But he doesn't buy it.
He shuts her down cold. He says, abandoning the capable to set up the young is unjust.
That's about principle.
It's purely principle. He's looking at the stability of the state. He essentially tells her, the emperor hasn't done anything wrong. You can't just overthrow a monarch because you feel like it. And then in a very dramatic moment, he just storms out.
I like a man with principles. But since she can't get the ethical people on board, she decides to go illegal. Extremely illegal. The source mentions a poison plot.
Oh, yeah. She realizes she can't win through bureaucracy, so she conspires with a palace maid named Yuan to poison the emperor's gastrodia cakes.
Okay, so the stakes are life and death now. This isn't just about who sits in the big chair. It's about who survives lunch.
Pretty much.
And this brings us to the central tension of this first act. Empress Xuanzong knows she's plotting. His advisors are screaming at him, you need to act now. But Xuanzong hesitates. Why? He's the emperor. She's trying to kill him. What's the holdup?
It's his father. It's the complexity of, filial piety in Chinese history. The retired emperor still loves his sister, Taiping, and Xuanzong is terrified that if he moves against his aunt, if he arrests her or kills her, he will upset his father and cause this massive family crisis. It's a very human moment. He's paralyzed because he doesn't want to be a bad son.
So the advisors are panicking, the poison is probably being mixed, and the emperor is wringing his hands over family guilt. And then we get one of the coolest, most cinematic moments in the text.
The sword.
The sword.
This is the turning point. We have Zhang Yu. And keep that name in mind. He's very important later. He's a high-ranking official away in the eastern capital. He hears about this deadlock. He knows the emperor is hesitating. So he sends a messenger to Xuanzong with a gift.
A gift.
A sword.
Talk about subtle. No thinking of you card. Just a weapon.
Not subtle at all. Another advisor, Qui Ryong, spells it out for the emperor. He says, Zhang Yu sending this sword is a message. He wants you to make a decisive cut.
Oh.
He reminds the emperor, back when you were just the crown prince, hesitation was understandable. But now you hold the power. If you let these conspirators succeed, the entire state collapses. And if this state collapses, how is that good for your father?
That's the reframing he needed. Acting against the aunt is protecting the father.
Exactly, that's the wake-up call. You have the sword, use it. So, On July 4th, a coincidental date, but easy to remember, Xuanzong finally moves.
And when he moves fast, right?
Yeah.
This isn't a slow legal process.
It's a blitzkrieg. He gathers his loyal brothers, Qu Wang and Shu Wang, along with his general and the famous eunuch Gao Lishi. They lead troops through the Qianhua Gate. It's a purge.
Wow.
They catch the conspirators Xuanzong, Senshi, and execute them right there in the court.
And Princess Tipping.
She flees to a temple in the mountains, probably hoping for sanctuary. But there's no escape this time. She is eventually forced to commit suicide at home.
Ouch.
And the source text gives us this grim pun. It says, "Only when this Taiping, which means great peace, was killed, did the world actually get Taiping."
Peace had to die for peace to arrive. That is heavy.
It is. But here's where the story gets really nuanced. You'd expect a bloodbath afterwards, right? A Stalin-esque wipeout of anyone who ever looked at Taiping.
Mm-hmm.
But Xuanzong does something very sophisticated. He shifts from the sword to what we might call management.
Right, because his dad, the retired emperor, hears the commotion and freaks out. The text says he climbs up the tower gate to see what's happening.
He's shocked. He thinks it's a coup against him. Xuanzong sends Gao Lishi to calm him down, basically saying, "Don't worry, Dad. We just stopped a rebellion. It's all over."
Okay.
But then look at how he handles the conspirators' families and allies. This is where the real insight comes in. Decisiveness wins the war, but mercy wins the peace.
He brings back Lu Xiangxian.
Exactly. The guy who refused to join the plot. He promotes him. He uses this beautiful metaphor. Only in the cold of winter do we know the pine and cypress. Meaning, in a crisis, Lu showed his true colors.
And he listens to him.
He listens to Lu. Lu advises him not to hunt down every single person who was coerced into following Taiping. He says, "The ringleaders are dead. Spare the rest to settle people's hearts."
And he even spares Taiping's son, Shu Chongjian. That shocked me. Usually you wipe out the bloodline. It's standard procedure.
Yes, but Su Chongjin was special. He had previously warned his mother, "Mom, stop plotting. This is dangerous." She had actually whipped him for saying that.
Oh, wow.
Xuanzong remembered that. He realized this guy was loyal to the concept of stability, even over his own mother. So he spared him and even granted him the imperial surname, Li.
So he's ruthless when he needs to be, but he's not a tyrant. He's strategic. He secures his power, but doesn't create unnecessary enemies.
Precisely. He knows that a sword can cut off a head, but it can't change a mind. Mercy does that.
Okay, so the physical war is over. The rebels are gone. The sword has done its job. Now we enter a different kind of battlefield. The office.
Bureaucratic warfare.
Yeah.
Which honestly can be just as deadly, just with fewer arrows and more paperwork.
So Xuanzong wants to appoint a new chancellor. He wants Yao Chong, brilliant, capable, a total rock star administrator. But remember, Zheng Yu, the guy who set the sword.
The guy who literally signaled the emperor to seize power.
Yeah.
He feels like he's the MVP here. He thinks, I sent the sword, I should be the guy.
He's jealous. He doesn't want Yao Chong to be the boss. So he plays dirty. He sends a subordinate, Jiang Zhao, to whisper in the emperor's ear, "Hey, your majesty, Yao Chong is great at military stuff. Maybe keep him as a general. He's probably not cut out for the delicate work of administration."
It's a classic pigeonhole tactic. He's too rough for the office.
Right.
But Xuanzong is sharp now. He's not the hesitant prince anymore. He sees right through it. He asks Jiang Zhao, "Did Zheng Yu tell you to say that?"
And he admits it.
Panics and admits it. Xuanzong appoints Yao Chong anyway.
So Yao Chong gets the job.
Yeah.
But he knows Zhang Yu is gunning for him. And this leads to my favorite anecdote in this whole deep dive.
The heart disease.
The heart disease.
This is a brilliant piece of political theater. One day, Yao Chong limps into the royal court. He's dragging his foot, looking miserable. Emperor Xuanzong sees this and asks, "Do you have a foot injury? Why are you limping?"
And Yao Chong looks him in the eye and says, "I have a disease of the heart, not the foot."
It's a powerful line. In Chinese metaphor, the heart, or belly, is where you keep your secrets, your deep worries.
Okay.
He explains, "The reason I'm distressed isn't my leg. It's that Zheng Yu, a high minister, is secretly hanging out with Qi Wang, your brother."
Ooh. Now, we need to pause here. For the listener, why is hanging out with the emperor's brother such a massive red flag? Like, can't guys just hang out?
Not in dynastic politics. A powerful minister cozying up to a royal prince is treason 101. It looks like you're building a faction. It implies you're betting on the brother to be the next emperor.
It's exactly what Princess Taiping was doing.
Exactly. It triggers Xuanzong's PTSD from the coup he just survived.
So Yao Cheng drops this bomb. Xuanzong must have been furious. He trusted Zhang Yu.
He trusted him, but the suspicion of betrayal is a massive trigger for Xuanzong. He says, what is Zhang Yu trying to do? He immediately plans to have the imperial prosecutors investigate and punish Zhang Yu the very next day.
And investigate in this context usually means arrest, torture, and execution. There's no HR department.
Correct. Zhang Yu is toast. He's sitting in his office, totally unaware that the hammer is about to drop.
And this is where the story takes a weird, almost cinematic turn.
Enter the mystery man.
Jie Quanzu. Who is this guy?
He's a nobody, essentially, and that's the point. He used to benefit from Zhang Yu's kindness years ago, but then he disappeared, changed his name, and was living in obscurity working for a palace eunuch.
Okay.
He overhears the eunuch talking about the emperor's anger. He realizes his old benefactor is about to be executed.
So he rushes to Zhang Yu's house. He hands over a calling card. Zhang Yu is like, whoa, oh, that guy from years ago. He comes out, and Jie drops the news. Tomorrow morning, you're going to be arrested and probably killed.
Zhang Yu is terrified. He asks, what do I do? And Jie Quanzu has a plan, but it's a weird plan. He says, we need to get to the 9th princess, the emperor's favorite sister. But we need a bribe to get an audience.
A bribe to get a meeting.
Yeah.
And this is where we get to the night-glowing curtain.
Right. Zhang Yu is panicking, listing all his treasures, gold, silver, silk. Jie says, no, none of that. That's generic. Anyone can give gold.
He needs something unique.
Exactly. Then Zhang Yu remembers he has this exotic item from Jilin Commandery, a curtain that glows in the dark.
A glow-in-the-dark curtain. It sounds like something out of a fantasy novel.
It was likely woven with phosphorescent materials or pearls. Incredibly rare. Along with a night-glowing pearl, these are items of wonder. Jie takes these items, rushes to the 9th princess that very night, and says, please, you have to help Zhang Yu.
And the princess loves the curtain. I mean, who wouldn't?
Sure.
But the argument she uses the next day isn't about the curtain. She uses emotional intelligence.
This is the critical soft power moment. The next day, the investigators are on their way. The 9th princess goes to Xuanzong. She doesn't argue facts. She argues feelings.
What do you say?
2 things. First, Zhang Yu protected you when you were crown prince. She reminds him of the sword, the loyalty in the dark times.
Smart. Remind him of the debt he owes.
And second, and this is the ace in the hole, she says, if you investigate him for being friends with your brother, Qi Wang, it's going to make Qi Wang incredibly anxious and fearful. It will look like you don't trust your own brother. It will destroy the family harmony.
That is brilliant, because the text goes out of its way to tell us how much Xuanzong loves his brothers.
It does. There's that touching anecdote where his brother Shuang was sick. Xuanzong was personally brewing the medicine over a fire. He blew on the flame so hard he burned his own beard.
And when the servants panicked, he just said, I just want him to get better. Who cares about my beard?
Exactly. He shares a long pillow and big blanket with his brothers. He treats them like family, not political rivals. This was extremely rare for emperors.
Right.
So when the 9th princess says, investigating Zhang Yu will hurt your relationship with your brother, Xuanzong he melts.
It completely disarms him. He calls off the dogs. He sends Gao Lishi to stop the investigation.
And Zhang Yu isn't executed. He's just demoted and sent to be a governor in Shangzhou. He survives.
He survives because of a curtain and a sister's plea. The curtain protected him from the sword.
Precisely.
And what happens to our mystery hero, Jie Quanzu?
That's the best part. Zhang Yu wants to thank him, give him a huge reward. Jie Quanzu just disappears. He repaid his debt and vanished back into the crowd.
Wow.
A true knight-errant move. He didn't do it for profit. He did it for honor.
Okay, let's shift scenes. Imagine for a second that you are lying on your deathbed. The room is quiet, the incense is burning, and you're running the highlight reel of your life.
Okay.
You've had a massive career, you've shaped the government, you've made history, but there is one final, nagging, terrifying loose end.
Oh, I don't like where this is going.
The person responsible for writing your official biography, the permanent record that will define you for the next 1,000 years, is your sworn political enemy.
That is the ultimate nightmare scenario. It's like knowing that your biggest troll on Twitter is going to be the only person allowed to write your obituary, and once they hit publish, it's carved in stone. Literally.
Right. So what do? Do you beg for mercy? Do you try to bribe them? Or do you pull off one of the most complex psychological bank shots in history to force them to write a glowing review against their will?
Knowing the figures we're talking about today, begging is definitely not on the menu. We are looking at a masterclass in manipulation.
We absolutely are. And folks, we are looking at the moment the golden age of the Tang dynasty starts to show some serious cracks.
It's such a pivotal moment. Up until now, under Emperor Xuanzong, we've seen what historians call the Kaiyuan era. It was a time of, incredible stability, austerity, and meritocracy.
Right.
But the shift, the discipline starts to fade, and the office politics go from, let's say, intense to deadly.
We're going to look at how the adults in the room were slowly replaced by sycophants, horse traders, and schemers. It's a story about three distinct types of power.
The principled bureaucrat, the arrogant favorite, and the genius strategist. And we start with the transition of power.
Okay.
The legendary chancellor, Yao Chong, the guy who basically fixed the empire's administration, has retired. He's our genius strategist. But he knows the empire still needs a strong hand, so he recommends a man named Songjing to take his place.
Songjing. Okay, so let's get a read on him. Is he just like Yao Chong 2.0?
Not at all. Not even close.
Yeah.
If Yao Chong was water adaptable, clever, flowing around obstacles, Songjing is granite.
Oh, wow.
The source describes him as rigid, upright, and terrifyingly principled. He is the ultimate Confucian hardliner. He doesn't care about being liked. He cares about the law.
He's the guy who will shut down the emperor's fun if it violates protocol.
Exactly. The strict school principle of the Tang dynasty.
I love it. But a guy like that is going to make enemies, especially when the emperor likes to surround himself with fun people. Enter our antagonist, Wang Maozong.
Wang Maozong is the anti-Songjing. He's not a scholar. He didn't pass the civil service exams. He runs the imperial stables. He's a horse guy.
Oh, horse guy.
But because he helped Emperor Xuanzong in the coup that got him the throne, he's considered a meritorious official. He's arrogant, he's flashy, and he thinks the rules don't apply to him because he's the teacher's pet.
So you have the unstoppable force of arrogance meeting the immovable object of integrity. And the collision happens at a wedding.
A wedding, yeah. Wang Maozong is marrying off his daughter. And because he's incredibly insecure about his lack of actual education or class, he wants this wedding to be the social event of the century. He needs that validation.
So he goes to the emperor and basically fishes for an RSVP.
It's worse than that. He complains to the emperor, I've got the wine, I've got the food, but I don't have the prestige. I need the high ministers to attend.
Wow.
He's asking the emperor to force the intellectual elite men like Songjing to come to his party.
And the emperor, trying to keep everyone happy, actually issues a decree. All ministers must attend Wang Maozong's party.
A mandatory fun day.
Which is Songjing's worst nightmare. He views Wang Maozong as a corrupting influence.
Oh, absolutely. So picture the scene. It's the day of the feast. All the other officials show up at dawn because they are terrified of offending the emperor's favorite.
They're all sitting there nervously drinking tea, waiting.
Right, but there's an empty chair.
Songjing.
Songjing isn't there. And this is just eating Wang Maozong alive. He keeps sending messengers to check, is he coming, is he coming? And Songjing sends back a message saying, I have a sudden stomach ache. I'll be there later.
The stomach ache.
Yeah.
The oldest excuse in the book. I feel like I used that in 3rd grade to get out of gym class.
But here, it's a power move. He makes them wait until noon, then the afternoon. The food is getting cold. The tension is just unbearable. Finally, Songjing arrives.
Okay, walk us through this entrance. This is the moment.
He walks in, and the room goes silent. Wang Maozong, despite being the host and the powerful favorite, is visibly nervous. He tries to offer pleasantries.
And
Songjing ignores the small talk entirely. He demands a cup of wine. He says, I am here by imperial decree, so I will drink this for the emperor.
he's making it very clear. I am not here for you, Wang. I am here because I was ordered to be here.
Precisely. He takes one sip. Just one. And then he suddenly grimaces and yells, oh, the stomach ache is back. And he turns around and walks right out.
That is ice cold.
Yeah.
He showed up, checked the box, and publicly insulted the host in front of the entire government.
It was a total humiliation. And the source gives us a great insight into Wang Maozong's reaction. He was furious, shaking with rage.
But he couldn't do anything.
Nothing. Songjing hadn't technically broken the law. He attended, he drank, he left due to illness. Songjing's integrity was so rock solid that even the emperor's favorite couldn't touch him.
There's a line in the text that sums this up, right? Something like,
Bad guests shouldn't be met. Bad hosts are even harder to deal with. It's a victory for the meritocracy. It proved that, in the early Tang, dignity and law still held power over favoritism.
this dynamic doesn't last.
Not at all.
No, because Wang Maozong doesn't take this as a lesson to be humble. He doubles down.
He does. And this brings us to the second story, which highlights just how fast the rot sets in when you let arrogance go unchecked.
Right.
Wang Maozong starts picking fights with everyone, including the emperor's right-hand man, the eunuch Gao Lishi.
And we need to talk about Gao Lishi. In a lot of history, eunuchs are just, generic villains.
Yeah.
But Gao Lishi is more complex, right?
Much more. He's the gatekeeper. While Wang Maozong has hard power, soldiers, horses, wealth, Gao Lishi has soft power. He controls the information flow to the emperor.
And Wang Maozong is too stupid to realize that you do not fight the guy who controls the emperor's ears.
Exactly. Which leads to the baby official incident.
Oh my God, this part. I read this part of the source material 3 times because I thought I was mistranslating it. Wang Maozong's wife has a baby boy.
A happy occasion.
And 3 days later, 3 days, the emperor grants this infant a 5th rank official title.
To put that in perspective for you, the Tang bureaucracy had 9 ranks. Rank 1 is the top. Rank 9 is entry level. A 5th rank position is something a scholar studies for 20 years to achieve.
It's a serious mid-career role.
And this baby gets it before he can even focus his eyes.
It's just absurd. It's the definition of corruption. But here is the twist. Wang Maozong isn't happy about it.
No, he's insulted. He brings the baby out to show Gao Lishi and complains. He says, "Is my son not good enough to be a 3rd-rank official?"
Wait, he wanted his 3-day-old son to be a high minister.
The entitlement has completely detached him from reality. He thinks the state exists to serve his family, but he made the fatal error of saying this to Gao Lishi.
And Gao Lishi, he doesn't correct him.
No, that's not Gao Lishi's style. He just smiles and nods. But the moment he gets back to the emperor, he reports the conversation.
Of course he does.
And the source says he added malicious words. He framed it not just as greed, but as disloyalty. He told the emperor, "Wang Maozong is complaining about your generosity. He blames you."
And that is the trigger.
Yes.
You can be greedy, you can be violent, but you cannot be ungrateful to the emperor.
The emperor just snaps. In a heartbeat, Wang Maozong goes from the most powerful favorite to an enemy of the state. He's stripped of his titles, exiled, and eventually, Gao Lishi keeps whispering until the emperor orders Wang Maozong to commit suicide.
Wow. It's a brutal reminder of how fragile that kind of power is. Song Jing's power came from his own integrity. Nobody could take it away.
But Wang Maozong's power was borrowed from the emperor.
And it could be repossessed in a second.
Precisely. And it also shows us that the emperor is becoming reactive. He's being played. Gao Lishi knew exactly which buttons to push. The emperor thinks he's making a decisive judgment, but he's actually acting on curated intelligence. The golden age clarity is getting foggy.
Speaking of clarity and intelligence, we have to pivot to the absolute highlight. We talked about Song Jing's brute force integrity. Now we have to talk about Yao Chong's brain.
Yao Chong, the strategic genius. But at this point in the text, he is dying. He's on his deathbed.
And this brings us right back to our intro. Yao Chong is worried about his legacy. He knows that in Chinese history, the spirit way stele, the tombstone inscription, is everything.
Everything. If it's written well, you're a hero forever. If it's written poorly, you're a joke.
And the only man with the literary talent to write a text worthy of Yao Chong was a man named Zhang Yu. The problem: Zhang Yu and Yao Chong spent their entire careers trying to destroy each other.
They were bitter political rivals, hated each other.
So Yao Chong is lying there dying, thinking, I need my enemy to write my biography. If he asks normally, Zhang Yu might refuse, or worse, he might write it, but include subtle insults.
Yeah, the praise, that is actually blame. So Yao Chong hatches a plan. He calls his sons to his bedside. He tells them, when I die, Zhang Yu is going to come to pay his respects. He has to. It's protocol.
Right.
When he comes, I want you to take all of our family's treasures, the jade, the pearls, the silks, everything I've collected, and lay them out in front of my coffin.
It sounds like he's setting up a yard sale at a funeral.
Yeah.
What is the logic here?
He gives his sons very specific instructions. He says, watch Zhang Yu. If he walks in and ignores the treasures, if he just looks at me and cries, then we are in trouble. It means he is holding on to his grudge, and he will likely try to ruin us. But if he stops, if he looks at the treasures, if he picks them up and plays with them, that means his greed is stronger than his hate.
Oh, that's brilliant.
If he does that, you must give him everything, the entire collection. And right when he is holding the loot, you ask him to write the epitaph.
That is such a gamble.
Yeah.
You're betting your generational wealth on a facial expression. So, the moment of truth. Yao Chong dies, Zhang Yu arrives. What happens?
The source is not kind to Zhang Yu here. It describes him as talented but greedy. He walks in, sees the spread of antiques, and his eyes light up.
Of course they do.
He starts picking things up, admiring the craftsmanship. He completely forgets about his dead rival lying 3 feet away.
The trap snaps shut.
Yao Chang's son steps in and says, "My father loved these things, but he has passed. He instructed us that if you like them, you should have them. Please, take it all. We only ask for one thing in return, a commemorative inscription."
Zheng Yu's probably thinking, jackpot.
He is. He's completely overwhelmed by the gift. In that moment of euphoria, he agrees. He goes home and writes a masterpiece. He pours all his literary skill into it, praising Yao Chang as the greatest statesman of the age.
The biography Yao Chang always wanted.
Yes. But Yao Chang wasn't done, was he? He had one final instruction from the grave.
He did. He knew human nature way too well. He told his sons, the moment you get the text, carve it into stone immediately. Do not wait. And send a rubbing of it to the emperor.
Why the rush?
Because buyer's remorse is real, but writer's remorse is worse. A few days later, the high of the free treasure wears off. Zheng Yu starts thinking, wait a minute. I hated Yao Chang. He was my enemy. Why did I just write a glowing tribute to him? I should have dragged him.
So he tries to take it back.
He actually sends a messenger to Yao Chang's sons. He says, I feel the language wasn't quite polished enough. Can I have the text back to make some edits?
Edits. Right. He wants to insert the insults.
But the sons reply, we are so sorry. It has already been carved into the stone tablet, and the emperor has already seen it and said it was beautiful.
Checkmate.
Zheng Yu is left standing there, realizing he's been outsmarted by a dead man. And he says the famous line recorded in the history books.
Dead Yao Chang calculated living Zhang Yu.
Dead Yao Chang calculated living Zhang Yu.
That gives me chills. It's such a triumph of intellect.
But what does it say about his values?
It tells us he was the ultimate pragmatist. He realized that wealth is temporary, jade breaks, silk rots, but the written word, in the context of Chinese history, that is eternal.
He was willing to bankrupt his family to ensure his reputation survived.
He understood that history is a story, and he paid a very high price to be the editor of that story.
It's a brilliant high note. But we have to pivot, because the source material takes a very dark turn right after this.
It does. This is the tragedy of the men we've just talked about. Yao Chang, Song Jing, even Zhang Yu. They represented the adults in the room, but they don't live forever.
And as they die off, one by one, a vacuum opens up.
And nature abhors a vacuum. Emperor Xuanzong is getting older. He's getting tired of the strict moralizing of guys like Song Jing. He wants comfort. And into this space steps a woman named Consort Wu Hufei.
Consort Wu is a fascinating and terrifying figure. She captures the emperor's heart, but she wants more. She wants to be empress.
So she manages to slander the actual empress, getting her deposed and kicked out of the palace, but that's not enough. She wants her son to be the crown prince.
But there's already a crown prince.
Exactly. So she engineers a conspiracy. She accuses the crown prince and 2 other princes of plotting a coup. She claims they are wearing armor in the palace.
And the emperor? He believes this. This is the same guy who worked with the brilliant Yao Chang. Now he's believing rumors.
He's isolated, he's paranoid, and this leads to one of the darkest days in Tang history. Emperor Xuanzong orders the execution of 3 of his own sons in a single day.
3 princes, executed by their father, because of a rumor.
It sent shockwaves through the empire. It signaled that the rational, meritocratic golden age was effectively dead. If the emperor could kill his own sons based on pillow talk, nobody was safe.
The rule of law had been replaced by the rule of fear.
And the source gives us a grim ending for Consort Wu, too. She doesn't exactly get to enjoy her victory.
No, the psychological toll was too much. The text says she fell ill shortly after. She started hallucinating. She claimed she could see the ghosts of the 3 princes coming to tear her apart. She basically died of guilt and terror.
Wow. So let's look at the board. The wise ministers are dead. The ambitious consort is dead. The princes are dead.
The emperor is left alone in a palace full of ghosts.
And this is the cliffhanger our source leaves us with. The emperor is depressed. He's lonely. And instead of looking for a new Song Jing to fix the government, he asks Gao Lishi to find him a new distraction.
He orders a massive search for new beauties.
Right. And this search will eventually lead him to Yang Weifei, the most famous consort in Chinese history. Her era will be one of incredible romance and art, but the political foundation is it's gone.
The Anlishan Rebellion, the civil war that nearly destroys the dynasty, is just over the horizon.